Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Blue Oval Podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Sadlin. How's it going, man?
Ben, we've been producing so much fire content that I literally had to evacuate my apartment today, my apartment building, because someone probably overcooked their lunch today, and my apartment building, I guess, was on fire. So I apologize if that was my mixtape. I apologize if that was just our content. I'm sure you can understand why content was a little delayed today as I tried to get it all out.
I didn't see that message in our Slack until right before we started. I was like, oh, probably should have asked him about before I started texting about all the other small little things about scheduling for
Yeah.
the podcast. But glad that you're okay. Okay, glad that your apartment complex is not ashes.
Well, what happened is that I didn't hear the alarm. There was no alarm that went off in my. So I'm sitting there and I go, "There's a lot of fire. There's a lot of sirens. Where is that?" And I look down. It's everyone's evacuated. I'm like, "Oh, I need to go." So it was one of those instances. But yes, enough of that. We got to get ready for a big national championship weekend coming up. And yeah, we also got a few ratings and reviews, right?
Yeah, I think we got one new one on Apple and Spotify. I think we're up to 59 on Apple, 92 on Spotify. My dream of 100 by Nationals is on life support. We're going to need
Yep.
a miracle for that to happen by this weekend. But I'm not giving up a hope until it's over, but it doesn't look good now.
Yeah, not great. Not great. All right, national championship weekend. I'm not even going to badger people because they actually did such a good job of that last week leading into the immediate pod. I'm not going to badger anyone.
Yeah.
So, national championship weekend, it's coming up. We're going to go through every men's and women's distance event. We're going to talk about our favorites, talk about our dark horse, and our who has the most to prove. So, where do you want to start?
Let's start with the 800 and let's specifically start with the women. So we don't have the heats yet, but what we were able to do is use the same system that the NCAA used last year in terms of separating the heats using seeding to come up with what we believe will be the two different heats for the 800 and the mile. So with that said, we're going to be talking as if we do know the heats selections, but those could be different when the NCAA actually releases the official ones. We believe that they're going to be correct, and that's why we're going to go ahead with that. So just a quick disclaimer on that. With that said, Garrett, who is your favorites for the women's 800?
It's been a question that we have battled with all year long. I'm glad Butler's not in this because it would have made it that much more difficult. I think I said it before. I think I'm going to say it again. I think it's Michaela Rose. I think she has just been so dominant. She hasn't really been tested, and she's raced some really, really good names. She's just looks so poised, and it's crazy that how of the title contenders that we're considering, she's probably the most experienced, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the wild part. But I just think the way that she's been controlling her fitness, I don't know how. I don't. I can see her losing, but I would think it would be very surprising.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think she deserves to be the favorite. I think the other two contend. Do you see two other contenders
I
here?
do. Hmm.
So the freshman duo of Willis and Whitaker. Whitaker and Rose are, I think, going to be in the same heat, and that second heat is looking very loaded, and I think that might be make things a little bit more difficult for them. I still anticipate both of them coming out of it, but they have women like Carly Thomas, Valerie Tobias, Claire Seymour, Wilma Neeson in that second heat, so it's going to be a dogfight. That first heat, while strong, isn't nearly as top heavy. And I imagine Willis is going to get out of that heat with ease. But at the end of the day, I think the inexperience of Willis and Whitaker, honestly, my inability to pick one of them over the other
Hmm.
leads me to Rose.
And that's a good point, right? It's almost well, if I can't pick one over the other, why would I not
Right.
pick Rose, who's just as good? And it's tough because I don't know if how convinced I am that Rose is like definitely going to win. I think she's favored to win. I think I would pick her, and I am. But you take a look at a few of these names. I'm like, what if Sarah Hendrick has a really good day?
Yeah.
What if Barrett like just finally clicks? What if Carly Thomas gets to that point? What if Wilma Nielsen actually, like delivers on that 1K potential? Right? It's all these little things that begin to add up, and I'm like, what about this? What about that? I think it's Rose, so I can understand it. But um, any other title favorites before we move to the dark horses?
I think that's it. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think you have a lot of dark horses, and so we can get into that. But I think it's really three in that first tier. Who is one of your biggest dark horses, though, outside of that top three?
I don't know if you're going to get this. I Dark Horse. Here's the thing: Dark Horse is someone who I think we don't expect to initially have like a significant impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if you would call like Imogen Barrett or Carly
Yeah.
Thomas or Sarah Hendrick. I don't think you can call them dark
No.
horses. I like Kellyanne Beckford of Houston,
Mm-hmm.
D2 national champion, ran 205 last spring at the D2 level. Very quick, like really good turnover. And she's gone from like 209 to 205 to 204 to 202. Like she has been rapidly progressing. She's experienced. She's clicking off PR after PR. She's in a deep heat, but it's not a top heavy heat. At least that we believe. I don't know, man. Like I could definitely see her sneaking through and getting like fifth place, fourth place, something like that.
I think like I have two kind of types of dark horses. One where I think she could win it all on the very special circumstances, and that's Claire Seymour. Like if
Mm-hmm.
everything clicks like it normally does at this time of year for her, I think she has the experience, way more than a lot of the other contenders, and she just always peaks at the right time. And so I think she's someone that I could see potentially even winning. And then someone that I just like as a All American favorite, I think she's almost a lock in my mind to make it to finals is Catherine Mitchell.
Mm-hmm. I like
You're
her.
a little worried about maybe her top end speed compared to a lot of these other women with a PR of 203 flat compared to a lot of these women who have run in the low 202s or 201. But she just won ACCs and looked extremely poised doing it. I think she is going to make finals and is going to run a very smart race that is going to put her in that like you said before with Kellyanne Beckford, that fifth place area, because she's just going to be smart. She's not going to necessarily run for the win, I don't think, which is I think going to let her pick up the pieces when other people fall off.
Yeah, I like Mitchell. That was going to be my other name that I was thinking about. It's the experience, but like she's been really good. She hasn't had a bad
Mm-hmm.
race, and she's tactically really sound. She can usually hang with some pretty decent paces. I like her a lot as well. It's going to be interesting though. Like a lot of this, it's not just like, oh, you're inexperienced. It's you're inexperienced and you're at altitude, right? Like there are certain factors like that where I go, but at the same
Yeah,
time, everyone's at altitude, and everyone except like I think Malia Mangati from Boise State and Claire Seymour from BYU. Outside of those two, there's really not anyone else who really trains at
right.
altitude. So maybe it's a give and take, but I do like Catherine Mitchell a lot. I wanted to go with Beckford, but yeah, I like Mitchell.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the last category, most to prove.
Um, there's a couple people you could say here. I'm going to go Claire Seymour, and she just had a really not great
Mm-hmm.
season. And then all of a sudden she's like, ta-da, I'm ready again. We're like, what? She runs 202. Like, we're like, well, where did this come from? I she is historically peaked. She is always great in the postseason. Um, sorry, I'm not focusing because there's literally the military planes flying over my apartment right now. I can't. They're coming for me, Ben. Anyways, but yeah, she just always peaks in the postseason. But this was such a weird season in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
she just didn't look great, and now we have no choice but to bank on her.
Yeah,
So I think this is a big prove it race.
I will go with Imogene Barrett. I think this
Mm-hmm.
is I think her senior year. I think this final season for her, she has been good throughout the this year. Um, and I just want to see her be able to finish it off with what we feel like is her best race. I feel like in a lot of championship races we haven't seen her run at her pinnacle. And I think you mentioned it earlier. What happens if she finally has that perfect race, which we feel like she
Mm-hmm.
has in her? I think this is a big one. Going up against an inexperienced front group, this is maybe where she could do her best and biggest damage at the national stage.
Anyone else that you had? I had like one or two other names.
Sarah Hendrick was probably the only other one.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, I think this was normally goes to someone who's in that favorite group, who's older and just hasn't gotten it done. But you can't say that about this year's front group.
I would have maybe thrown Carly Thomas in there as well. It's a little difficult because she's she did she broke her femur
Yeah,
like I think a year and a half or maybe even 2 years ago. But it's now 2 years removed or a year and a half removed, and now I kind of want to be like, you're almost right there,
yeah.
right? Like, what's the prove it race for her? And maybe that happens this spring. I mean, she's still been running incredibly well. I just know that she's trying to break through, and she will. I just don't know when that will be. So,
Yep, I think that's a good name. All right, let's move on to the men's 800. And I'll start out with my favorite in this event. I think I got to go with, again, I'm struggling with the same conundrum I did on the women's side of I don't know which runner from this particular school to pick. But at the end of the day, I think I'm going to go with Yusuf Bizimana.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. This was probably the toughest one when I was thinking about this. I get it. I get Yusuf. Um, I'm gonna go Navasky Anderson.
You
I'm just gonna do. I stuck with him this season. I can't back out now. I think it's very easy to look at the Texas guys and be like, look how great they are, and they are great. They're awesome. They could absolutely win this national title. Anderson hasn't necessarily done anything bad to hurt his stock. I wish he did race at
mhm.
SECs, but he was great last spring. He was awesome in the 1 800-meter race that he ran. Um, I will say the only thing that now, as I talk about it, that concerns me is that Busy Mana has run on this track and he's run his C time on this track and he's clearly done well at altitude. That concerns me a little bit that I may have chosen the wrong one, but I do think you have a fair and good pick.
Yeah, you've always been a little higher on Anderson. I just wish we could have seen a little bit more out of him in the
Mm-hmm.
800. I thought it was very strange that he avoided the 800 at SECs, or maybe he didn't avoid. Maybe that was just the game plan. But I thought we would have learned a lot from SECs going up against a lot of his national competitors and like Baylor Franklin, Sam Austin, um, Will Sumner. I thought we would have learned a lot from that, and unfortunately, we just didn't, which makes this a lot more difficult. But at the end of the day, I think it is Busy Mana. I think it's Carosa. I think you should probably still keep Anderson in that front group, but I struggle to see many other guys winning this. Maybe in like a weird situation where it's a little slow, you could see someone like surprise you, like Sumner did at SECs. But I think those are my three main favorites going into this weekend.
Yeah, it's hard just because, like, sometimes there's just a bias of you look at a certain name and you're like, can you imagine them being a national title winner? And just sometimes you're just like, no, I can't, right? Like, I don't think, like, Iman Zahafi, I don't see him winning a national title this season. There's like other guys like Tyrese Roden and John Lester. Like, there's all guys who are like, they just have breakout races or they're inexperienced or, like things of that nature. Um, I'd maybe throw Rodman in that mix. Maybe Gomez. Like it's hard. Like I think you could make an argument for like six dudes, but I think in reality it's like three.
Yeah, I think Gomez was probably be the other guy that I might add
Mm-hmm.
in there. His experience, he's run well this year. I think you could make the argument there, but I just don't think he's quite at the level of the Texas guys. and hasn't maybe shown the high end potential that Anderson has over the last like 8 months.
Dark horse. I know who you're gonna pick.
Well, so I don't know. I think Baylor Franklin is too good to be.
Yeah, just so good. Okay, that's exactly what I thought.
I think he's too good, but like I because I think he's close. But in terms of someone who is outside of that group that can win, I think he's probably my pick.
Okay. And the problem is that I would say the same thing with Sam Rodman.
Yeah.
Like I think it's the very similar situation. Let's force each other to pick someone else. Who else? Who else would you choose?
I mean, I think Will Sumner is going to make finals.
Mhm.
Like, I think he's just going to run a smart race. He's going to keep himself clean, and he's not going to get caught up in anything like he did at SECs, where he just avoided the crowd and ended up winning because of that. It was a weird race, but when you're able to react well in those weird races, I think that bodes well when you're going through prelims at nationals.
I don't know how the second seed can be considered a dark horse, but like Sam
Yeah.
Austin, I don't does that count, like the second seed being a dark horse? Because here's the thing, I don't think anyone has him viewed as
No.
a title favorite this year. It's no offense to him. It's just I don't think he's ready yet. I don't think he's there yet. But could he surprise us? Like, is he like relentless? Like, he's a guy who really knows how to at least give himself a shot at the end. May not always work out. But he can at least give himself a shot, and that's what I would be like. Watch out for him. So, all right, let's stop with the dark horses there, because then we'll just keep taking up all of our candidates. Who has the most to prove?
I think it's Carosa. He's made his
You're
decision to run the 800 this year. He's looked really good. He won Big 12s. Like this is the opportunity here, and he needs to finish in the top three.
I think it's Amon Zahafi.
Yeah.
Dude is probably one of the 3 or 4 most talented guys in this field. He has not been great in the postseason. He does have an ACC title, but just over the last few seasons, I've been like, this guy should be top 5 or 6, no questions. And it hasn't always been there. I think this is a really big race for him. I think he can absolutely do it. It's just a matter of, does he have the tactical understanding yet? Didn't see it at ACCs, doesn't mean it's not there. So we'll find out.
Yeah, and ACCs was a little bit different, like the way Clemson controlled that. I mean, obviously you want to be able to read and react in the race and see him kind of respond better, but I will say he's probably not going to face anything like that unless Texas does that, and maybe they
or
will.
Iowa State.
Yeah, that's true. But I would anticipate he'll be more prepared for that. I think that's a really good pick. Let's go to the women's mile, though. I'll have you start here. We got a whole really strong list of names to pick from for your favorite.
Favorites: Matug, Ramsden, Gregory.
Not putting Butler in there.
It's not that I don't think she can't. It's she's won a 1 mile race, and it was a massive PR. Like, we know nothing about how she runs the mile. Like, she's got some 1500 experience, but it's still very little. I don't know anything about her mile experience. Like, that's it. She ran a great mile race at Boston. But we'll see. I mean, I don't know. She does have the skill set to win this. And yeah, maybe now I'm talking myself into it, but it's just the unknown that I don't know.
I think there's like a 1A and 1B tier here. So 1A is the 3 you listed: Matug, Ramsden, Gregory. 1B for me is Butler and Kazimierska. I think those are the like 5, and maybe throw in Thornton Bott as well, because she's been right there with Kazimierska. But I think those are like the 5 or 6 that I could realistically see winning, but I think there is a difference between 1A and 1B in terms of how likely they are to win.
See, here's the thing. I would put Ayildez and Gibson in that second tier,
Okay.
that 1B tier, because remember, Gibson ran a converted 431 on this
Mm-hmm.
very track. She was like unbelievably good at altitude. Um, so I would probably put her in that group just because we know she can run well at altitude. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard. If you had to go with one, though,
I'm still going with Matug.
yeah, so am I.
There's nothing that she has done this season that doesn't scream like title favorite. She's just been so good. She didn't win anything at ACCs, but she was a monster, and we talked about that in a couple different episodes. Like she was just so good to see her. Just I'm guessing she'll run the DMR, but then she'll come in and not have any races under her belt before she runs the women's mile final that day. I just think she's going to be able to do it.
I think it's her and Ramsden, and like when it really boils all down to it, I think it's her and Ramsden. We will see what happens. Um, I feel bad for Ramsden because I feel like she's had just this phenomenal season, and we're just
Mm-hmm.
like Matug, but it could very easily be Ramsden, and I think it's just because Matug's been a little more all over the place in terms of like her event selection, in terms of being in the ACC, which is a more obviously viewed conference. So I do want to give my respect to Ramsden in terms of what she's done this season. Dark horses, who do you got?
I mean, you mentioned Ayildiz, and that was probably going to be someone who I don't necessarily have in that either of those first two tiers. But the way she was able to hang with Gregory, I was really, really impressed. I don't see her necessarily being able to win, but I just think she's going to race smart, run well, get to finals, put her nose in there, and make things interesting. And then another dark horse is I think Anika Rice.
Oh, I knew you were gonna say that.
She's run at altitude,
Mm-hmm.
like she's used to it. She's just having a huge breakout season. I'm a little worried about the inexperience, but I think every time we've been worried about the inexperience, like on the grass, she's come through in a big way. I think she's just going to be so fit and so fearless that inexperience isn't going to matter that much, and she's going to put her nose right in there.
I want to say Izzy Thornton bot. I don't think she qualifies as a dark horse. Um, Depending on who you ask,
Mm-hmm.
I'll go Olivia Howell. I just think she's a really safe pick. I know she was one of the
Yep.
last seeds in, but I mean she is tactically really solid. Been there, done that, knows exactly what to expect. Again, the altitude, you never know, but like at this point, that's the same thing for everyone. And she just took down Carlson at Big
Yep.
Tens, and Carlson's running well. She's in this field, so we'll see what happens. But I just think like Hal is such a safe pick. Like you really can't go wrong with her.
As long as it's not like a super fast race, Howell is going to be like right there and going to be doing smart tactical moves throughout the whole race to put herself in position. Like she's never going to do anything that's going to take her out of a race. She's just very smart. So yeah, I love that pick. Most to prove.
Um, I can't. I don't know if this like. I don't know if this is a proper answer. It's gonna sound insulting given what she's accomplished, but I think it's Lauren Gregory.
So I think it's between her and Butler.
It's ridiculous to be like Lauren Gregory has something to prove. She doesn't. It's just that if she doesn't win, and if she goes into the spring and doesn't win a national title, she might go down as one of the greatest women to never win an NCAA title. I
Yep.
don't know. I got to go back and got to go check it out. But like from start to finish, in terms of what her career has looked like, she has had an incredible career. She has come this close to winning a national title like multiple times. Um, I think it's her. Again, that's not a dig at her. It's just a matter of like I would rather her have a national title. I just think she's deserving of it.
Yeah, and for someone who has been as competitive in as many different events as she has, you would think that eventually she would have like found that soft spot or like just timed things well where she could have gotten that title. And that 10K outdoors seemed like things were lining up for her. And so I think that again puts all the more reason why this is a big race for her, because she should be, like we just said, she is one of the title favorites. She absolutely can win this race if she runs an A, even like an A minus race. She's going to have a shot. And I, like you said, she's so talented to have never won a title. There just aren't going to be that many more opportunities left for her that are as good as this. It's a huge race for her this weekend.
Very well put. Very well said. Anyone else before we move on?
I think that's it. I mean, Butler just moving up to the mile, and like just after the ACC performance she had, to prove that she is still one of the best middle distance runners in the country after not having some great 800 times. I think this is kind of a big race for her, and where she goes the rest of this year, I think will be dictated by how this race goes.
Really?
I just like, so let's say she finishes like sixth this weekend. Where do you have her like going into outdoor, like among the 800 or the mile? Like I just feel like we had her on this, at least in our rankings, very high for so long, and we've given her the benefit of the doubt. I think if like she has a poor race here, then I think we lose a lot of that going to outdoors.
I think you certainly lose a lot of arguments to keep her high in our rankings, but she'll go to the spring. She'll go to the outdoor track. She'll run an absurdly fast 800. It'll be like 201. And we'll be like, well, she's going to be a contender in the 800 because we know what she can do. And then this conversation will be silly.
Yeah,
I know how
that's
this
fair.
works. I just know how these things go.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's wrong. I just think that, again, you'd only have so many opportunities to win that title. She's won an 800 before, and I think this will be a big weekend to see where she stacks up in the mile and if this is a realistic event for her in the future.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I would not argue that. So let's move to the men's mile here. How many?
I think 2.
Yep, I agree.
I'll
just let you say them.
SIE and Joe Wascom. I think they're going to be in different heats. I think going into prelims, they're going to be the two guys that I think everybody are going to be keying off of in their respective heats. They just combine the top end speed with the tactical awareness and just the ability to win better than anybody in this field. They have the fastest 2 times in the country. Wascom's the reigning 1500 meter champion. SIE had a fantastic outdoor season last year before having a weird performance at NCAAs, and then has followed that up with a perfect indoor season. So it's really hard to bet against either of these two guys.
We'll do the 1, 2, 3, and then we'll say who we want as our if we have like our all in or nothing title favorite.
Okay.
And Wyatt, by the way, Wyatt, if we again get out of line, because I'm going to blame Ben on this if we do, if you just align it so that the audience thinks that'd be great. You can keep this part in. That'd be that's fine too. All right, ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Wascom. Yeah.
And I am terrified of saying that, because especially after not having a great performance leading into this, I don't like betting against SIE, but I just trust the 1500 meter champ at this point more than someone who didn't make finals in the 1500 meter last year.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't think there's literally a single weakness, like in terms of like Wascom's skill set. Not that there's a single weakness on SIE's skill set, but I don't know. I'm almost glad that Wascom had a poor race the other weekend, because at least it's out of the way. So
yeah, and this is kind of jumping ahead, but I think in a weird way, SIE has like the most to prove, because I think if he wins
I disagree.
I think if he wins this, like, we are never picking against him again. Like,
It would be hard.
and it's not to say like that he needs this win or anything, but I just think a title will like so dramatically change the way we see him to the point where he's just going to be like could be the next big superstar in the middle distances.
So I think it's Wascom.
Interesting.
Because that title from last spring, let's be honest, it came out of nowhere. No one was expecting it. I don't know if he was expecting it. I'm sure he would probably say he was, but like, I wasn't expecting it. And yes, he's been incredible since then, right? He's been super awesome, right? But there's a little bit of like now, okay, you did it on the outdoor oval, do it on the indoor oval. You kind of surprised everyone. Can you do it again? Kind of thing. I think, that was it was one of the most surprising titles I've seen won during my tenure of writing. And I think it just needs a little validation. I think there's a little bit of like a little like prove it quirk to it.
Yeah, and I think that would be there more if he hadn't run 351 this year.
I agree.
And so I hear what you're saying though. Dark horse for you?
Dark horse. Not necessarily to win though, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
There's one name I really want, but I'm just not. Yeah, you know what? Let's have fun. Ronan McMahon Staggs. He's not experienced. He's had this huge breakout year, but he's not run slower than what? 357 this year, 3 times. He's gone 357, 355, 354. He beat Amon Kemboy. It's just like, it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, but when are you going to have a bad race? The tactics thing, not knowing what that's like, it scares me a little bit. But like, he's just on a roll. And I don't know if I would want to face him right now.
I think that's a very wild card. Like he could, I would not be surprised if he doesn't make finals, if he's 5th somehow. Like I think he could go in a lot of different ways. I'm going to go with Nick Foster. I think a safe name to make finals. I think he'll be right in the mix. I think he'll probably end up somewhere between that 5th to 7th range at the finals. I think he's just really solid and will work his way through the rounds well. Quick bonus question for the men's mile. Well, I guess a two-parter here.
4.
4 Washington men make finals. All right.
Yeah, I gotcha. 4.
How many points do they score in total?
What does it go? Like 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They score like 21 points. They would go 10. They go first, 4th, 5th, and then 7th.
Am I doing
that's
that?
What I got.
Right? Yeah. Okay. That sounds. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 21 points.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think if you're setting the over under for points, it's around 20, and then I would put like the over under for them getting out at like 4. I think is probably right because
4.
I could easily see 5, especially since they are I think going to be evenly stacked, 3 and 3 in each of the heats. It's going to be wild to see that many Husky jerseys.
By the way, if anyone was listening to that and they're like, that's just not how math works, we're writers. All right, cut us some slack. Anyways, I don't think we did it wrong.
No, I think you're right. It took me a while, but I got there. Let's go to the women's 3K.
Well, hold on a second. Talk about most improved.
I thought we already did with SIE.
I mean, I don't know, but I don't know if those are like the guys who are like the most approved.
Okay, all right,
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they can be your answer. I would have said Aiden Ryan.
Okay.
He came out of nowhere.
You think he has? I just think the fact that he's run 353 and is here.
Well, it's the fact that he ran one the 353. He had run 359 this season. He was having a good
Yeah.
season. He wasn't amazing. And then to go from 359 to 353, he did have a 356 PR. Yeah, maybe I'm stretching it a little bit, but like I'm not gonna lie. You kind of look at the resume compared to a few others, and I'm like, I don't know if I expected him to be really anywhere close to qualifying. Um, I hope he does well. Yeah, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think those. Actually, you know what, Brian Fay. Brian Fay, you're running the mile.
Mm.
You have a lot to prove.
Oh, I like that.
Like not running the 5K. This was a very interesting decision. I think he has probably the most to prove, just with his decision to run the mile.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that. And listen, to be and maybe it's just like a Washington thing in general. Hey, guys, you have 6 guys. Like, you better dominate this
Yeah.
event. You know, like if they come out. And I remember like when BYU had like 4 steeplechasers make the final, and they got
9th, 10th,
1
11th,
point.
12th. Yeah.
Yeah, they got like 1 point out of it or something like that. It was insane. So we'll see. It's a big kind of prove it race, I think, for Washington. All right, let's go to the women.
Favorite
Or women's 3K.
favorite in the women's 3K is Caitlin Toohey. We will get that out of the way. If for whatever reason Caitlin Toohey becomes mortal again, who is your bet to surpass her?
It's ridiculous. I go over these with you, and I should be more prepared. I even told you, I was like, hey, let's just suggest, like, in case someone, doesn't make it. Go Steely McCabe.
Yep, that was going to be my answer. I
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been Olamamwe if she would have run better at SECs, but that kind of freaked me out a little bit. McCabe coming off of a really good Big 12s. She's been there before. She's run fast times. Like, I just think she's probably the biggest contender because we don't necessarily. I mean, Volby's scratched, right? Or no? She's still
Mm-hmm.
she
Yeah,
has she is scratched, right?
she's scratched. Yeah.
So I think McCabe has to be it.
I think you can throw like Markovic in that, and I think Olamamwe, in a weird world where Tui falls off, I think it's Markovic, Olamamwe, and McCabe again. Parker Volby medical scratch. It's on the site. You can go check it out. I think it's those 3, and I think that's probably fair. I think like, and you kind of look down the list, like Plord's still a little too young. Bush has kind of been. She hasn't really raced the 3K a lot, so maybe it's not fair. Maybe you could throw Ramsden in there if you really want to. I don't know if I'm there yet, especially if she's going to come off the mile. So yeah, I think it's those 3, and I think I'd go McCabe. The thing with Olamamwe though is that I don't think she's tactically sound yet. I don't know what her tactics are like. I don't know what her speed is like. It's not to say that she can't get there. I think she's eventually going to win a couple national titles, but I just don't know if that's in the 3K.
Dark horses.
I like Sadie Sargent.
Coming in.
She's been running
hot. Yeah.
Yeah, she's been running really well as of late. Like Mara wrote the women's 3K preview, and we posted this on our Instagram as like a promotional piece. But she's like, ever since Sargent ran 4:35 in the mile at the Razorback Invite, she's been on absolute fire. And I was like, actually, yeah, she has. Like, you kind of look at it, the 3Ks and the miles, they've been consistent, they've been improving. Like, she's doubling effectively. It's really impressive stuff. She's BYU, so she runs well at altitude. I think there's a lot going for Sargent. I could absolutely see her getting All-American.
Yeah, you look at this list for like the dark horse, and a lot of them are doubling back after the mile, and so I don't love that when you're trying to figure out who's going to kind of break out. Give me Taylor Rowe. The experience hasn't run anything super quick this year, but I just think she's probably going to end up like finishing 5th or 6th, like somehow, like, and she's just going to weave her way through the field. She's not going to get caught up trying to catch Tui. I think she's going to run a smart race and be right there in that fourth or 5th position by the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we are insulting Rowe, and maybe we are. Like, honestly, scratch it. I'm putting Rowe in like the 4 favorites group. The like,
Okay,
if
fair
Tui
enough.
falls off, I think we have to put Roe in there just out of general respect because we do this all the time and she always delivers. She's the defending 3K champion. I think that's just insulting. So I'm gonna put her in the title of favorites if Tui falls off.
Fair enough. I think Kelsey Camille is also someone that's like right on that line too of like
Mm-hmm.
dark horse or like being in that contender status. I mean she's gonna know what Tui's doing, which I think is going to be a nice advantage. And she's hasn't quite hit the peaks I think that she did this fall. But she's still really good and should be very competitive.
Yeah, yeah, I don't disagree. Who has the most to prove?
I mean Tui.
Yeah, I was gonna say Tui too. Yeah. Um,
What
this is a like she should win this. Period.
this should be the Chewy NCAA indoor championships. Like that, like
Yeah.
what we remember in 10 years is going to be, should be Tui winning 2 titles, potentially doing something crazy in the DMR. Like it's going to be her big breakout on the track in a lot of ways, I think.
We'll talk about the DMR in a second. I think it's Tui. And honestly, you kind of go down the list. I don't think anyone else really has anything to
No.
prove.
A lot of like this list has like probably the most like former champions in it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great women in there, and I don't think anyone has anything to prove. I think they're all like proven, or they're still growing, and they're still outgrowing expectations. So like, it's crazy to say that Chewy has the most to prove, but yeah,
She got the most pressure on her. The highest expectations
that's
comes
true.
with the highest pressure as well. Let's go to the men's 3K where it is certainly not as cut and dry as the women's. Is it 3 for you? Is it 4?
I think it's four.
Okay,
I think it's four.
I'll let you list the 4.
Bosley, Jacobs, Masaudi, Robinson.
Robinson's like right there for me, which is crazy because I think I was the biggest Kai Robinson fan coming into this indoor season. I think he absolutely can. I worry about the crazy last like month that he's had. The fact that he was able to come back from World's Cross and still run 742 is incredible. Shows what kind of talent he is. I I just struggle to see what he's better at than any of those front 3. Like
And that's fair.
he's not, I don't think he has like better strength than Bosley and Jacobs, and I don't think he's a better kick than the Saudi.
I think he's probably the smartest racer of that
That
group,
might
though.
be fair. And that might be true.
Debatable with Masaudi, but like I think he's probably right up there.
Yeah. But if you had to pick one, who is it?
Mm, I don't. I don't know, man. I've really want to pick Masaudi. I really want to pick Masaudi. I'm gonna go Bosley. I thought I was gonna pick Jacobs. I think I'm gonna go Bosley. Um, he's the altitude guy, and he hammers home pace, and I think that's gonna benefit him. I do, and I think he can make this field work. I'm trying to look at a few other names. Like, there's not a ton of like. There's a couple like towards the back end of the seating in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
altitude based runners, but up towards those contenders, man, it's not a lot. And so I think I'll take Bosley. I think this is an advantage for him.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say Masaudi.
Yeah,
I've
yeah, and it's not
I've
wrong.
also been extremely high on him since his incredible 3 weeks of NCAA cross country into BU, and then what he's followed that up with this winter. I'm in. I if
Yeah.
Bosley and Jacobs want to try to time trial this, I don't think they're going to be able to push it fast enough that they're going to drop him. Like I unless they run like 738, which maybe they do. Maybe they're just able to do that. I think Masaudi's going to be able to hang, and he's not going to do the work. They're going to have to do the work, and I think at the
Yeah,
end of the day,
yeah.
that's going to come to his benefit.
I don't hate the. It's not a wrong pick. Like I was very close to picking the Saudi. There, it's just like a. Yeah, what does like my gut say versus like what does my head
Yeah.
say. Um, I've learned to like listen to my head sometimes rather than just my gut because my gut will get me in trouble. Um, who's your dark horse?
Does Duncan Hamilton count as a dark horse?
I was gonna pick him. Yeah.
So he has the altitude. I think he's not going to be afraid to put his nose in there, and that might be to his detriment ultimately. But I
Mhm.
think he's going to go for it. Like I don't think he's going to be content just like running a smart race and finishing sixth. I think he's going to go for it, and I think he could
Yeah, I mean,
end up finishing third or fourth.
he's run a converted 743, and he's run a sea level 744. So I think he can hang on for an All American honor. I don't think he's going to be contending with those top four. Um, but this is like hey, you should benefit from this. He's going to be
Mm-hmm.
fresh. He scratched the mile. I think that benefits him. So yeah, I think that's a fair one. I don't really know if I see a ton of others that you could consider as like dark horses.
I think the
Um,
Oklahoma State guys behind Masaudi shouldn't be considered dark horses, but I also feel like they haven't been. We haven't really talked about them that much. Like they are both like Shoppy, especially has been running extremely well, and we
mhm.
just don't include him in that top four group.
He doesn't have that edge that
Yeah,
Masaudi does. He's basically Masaudi minus whatever that like it factor
winning
is.
against
And this,
Masaudi basically.
well, it's winning against Masaudi, right? Although he did split 352, but this is the 3K, right? Um, I think Shoppy, if he maintains this, he will win a national title one day. I just don't know if it's going to be now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Who is the person who has the most to prove?
I think it's Bosley. I think it has to be Bosley. If you run the NCAA record, you're at altitude, win the title.
Yeah, this would be his first NCAA title. This is probably one of his best chances to do it. I mean, I do you think he has a better chance at winning the 3K or the 5K?
Please hold.
It's basically the same names in
Um,
both.
I know, but it's actually a little different. The 5K field is far lighter, like far lighter. Um, I don't know. I guess 5K,
I think so too.
but I I still don't know if I'd even pick him though. Like I just think like everything adds up to Bosley winning the national title in the 3K in the 3K.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's him or Jacobs. Like I think this would be such a elevating performance for Jacobs to win a 3K title. I think that would be just a huge add to his resume. But Bosley to win his first title, I think that this would mean even more.
Yeah, yeah. And other than that, I don't know how many other guys have like that much to prove. SAE will be back on the double. Like he's a
Yeah,
huge X factor, but I just don't see him
being able
on
to
the double.
no.
I mean, because he didn't handle the double exceptionally well. Now, granted, he was facing Jacobs and Camieri at the SEC championships, but like that, he's on the double. Like if you
Yeah,
want to contend for a national title, like you probably want to be fresher against this field. So, um, other than that, I don't really know if there's a ton of guys that I'd say need to prove themselves.
I agree. Um, Women's 5K, similar conversation to start. We believe it's going to be too easy to lose. Who is in that next group?
It's Hilda, it's Chalengat, and then it's Mazadowny,
Yeah,
and maybe Kelsey Camille.
I you could maybe make an argument for Venters and Camille, but I think it's those three and then Venters and Camille right behind them.
I agree. I really don't think we have to talk about that anymore.
Yeah, I was
But
about to say, let's move on to dark horses.
I don't know if she counts as. Oh, you know what? Sarah Carter, 100%. Really like Sarah Carter. Just won 2 Mountain West titles on this exact track. Took down all the New Mexico women minus Mazza who didn't race, I don't think, or at least she didn't race in the 5K, 3K. She's gotten a lot better, like getting converted 1541. It's also like a feel good story. Like she was cut from the Washington team in 2019, has battled like a crazy amount of injuries. Like it's insane. Has had some own personal struggles that she's like, this is all public on her Instagram. It's really an amazing story to see like where she's come from. So this might be a little bit of a I'm rooting for you kind of pick, but I do think she's a really good dark horse pick. I do.
Well, I mean, she's coming in just on a heater, and you can't say that necessarily about a ton of these women in the 5K because they ran their marks in December. And so, what she did to be able to get into this field late in the season, I think is really impressive. And I agree. I'm looking at trying to make an argument for anybody else, and I'm really struggling to make a better one than Sarah Carter.
I would maybe say Ella Baran.
You see, I was like, I think
Does
that's
she count though?
yeah.
Yeah, does she count?
She's right
Yeah.
on the
And that's
line.
that's the whole reason why I didn't pick her.
She's an altitude runner. She's been running amazing. She hasn't run anything super quick in the 3K, which makes me a little nervous in this kind of race.
She's running 8:57.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's fair.
or 8:58 maybe. Something
Yeah,
like that.
something. Yeah, you're right. It was right around there. But yeah, I mean, I think she's going to be an All-American. I don't know what her ceiling is, but I think she's almost a lock to be in the top 8.
Who has the most to prove?
Tui.
I mean, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like an easy answer, I guess.
I mean, there isn't
Yeah.
anybody else that you're like, man, this would be a real bummer if you didn't win this, like, or run
Well,
well,
not like a win.
or
I don't
run
know.
well.
I'd maybe throw Sydney Seymour in there. I never really know what I'm going to get from
Yeah.
her, but she is really like when she's on, she's on. I just never know what I'm going to get from her. Most to prove, Natalie Cook doesn't have anything to prove, but also like, oh, I just want to see you race.
And yeah, I agree.
Like that's I'm just like what happened is kind of like all I want to see being proven, right? It's like you're not just completely out of fitness, right?
Alive and well.
Yeah, just are you okay? And that's just kind of all I want to know. So that's it.
Yeah, I think you look at this group, a lot of them are either established veterans who have done well in the past, or up and comers who are either just happy to be there, or like it wouldn't be surprising to see them have a little bit of an off day.
I agree, totally.
On the men's side, another so very top heavy, as you kind of mentioned. I think the list of guys who can realistically contend: Dylan Jacobs, Kai Robinson, Drew Bosley, and I'll go Alex Mayer.
Yeah, that's probably what I was going to do too.
And
I was like, am I going to put Mayer in there? But you know what? I am, because it's just like, he'll come back and he'll hurt us in some way. So you have to respect him. He will be in there. If you had to choose, who is it?
Give me Robinson.
It's either him or Jacobs in my mind. Even though I said that the 5K is the best opportunity for Bosley to win the title, I think it's Jacobs. I think he probably has the most like turnover speed. Like this is closer to his ideal event.
Yeah. He looked so good at
just,
SECs. Like the turnover that he showed
really
off
good.
was really impressive.
Really good. I mean, there's not a right answer here. It's any of those 4 guys you could pick, and I'd be like, yeah.
I feel a little bit better about Robinson. 1, in the longer event, but 2, I just think he's going to be a little like he's not going to be nearly as run down after like like running the 5K as he will be in the 3K, because I think the miles, the air miles, all that's going to add up eventually, and I feel a lot better about him going into this fresh. And then I think he might struggle a little bit in the 3K, but if he can be 95% of himself, I think he's proven that he can beat anybody.
That's fair. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I think that's fair.
And that's hard. Like I there's no reason
Yeah,
for me not to pick Jacobs or Bosley, but I'm just gonna go with Robinson.
dark horse.
Um, I'll do Carter Solomon.
Oh, I'm so good. I'm so good at this. He's like, he's got to take one of two guys. And
Who's
he's
the other
got
one?
Barry Keene.
Oh no, I was in between him and Acer Iverson.
Yeah. That's so funny. All right, sorry. Go ahead. Wax poetic.
I think Solomon's just like he doesn't know that he shouldn't be this good,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yet, like, or that he shouldn't belong like in this group. Like I think he's just going to run free. There aren't a whole lot of expectations, and I think he's just going to. And he's a tough runner. He showed his speed a little bit more this indoor season in the mile. I just think he's going to hang tough and be right there. He also could finish 16th in this race, and I don't think that would be stunning. But I feel good about him surprising a lot of us and being in that like 6-7 range.
I was thinking of him, and then I think I just kind of projected onto you. I was going to say Solomon, or in this case, Barry Keene. Barry Keene, this poor guy. Let's go back on his track. So he finally got an All-American honor this past fall, 17th at NCAA XC Championships. Before that, 2022 outdoor, 9th in the 10K. 2022 indoor, 11th in the 5K. 2021 XC 100th. 2021 outdoor 10K, he was 15th. 43rd in 2021 XC. Like it's ridiculous how he has continued to barely miss like all American honors. He's got one in the fall now. He's due. He's so experienced. He knows like this is honestly a light field relative to what it's been in the past. Like you start going down after like, I mean, really after like 8, 9. You can just argue as far as like 7, right? Like those are all names that you can realistically see Barry Keene beating.
Yeah,
And I think this is a big opportunity for him. So I'm going to go Barry Keene.
absolutely. Most approved.
Nico Young?
Yeah, I think that's it. Again, it's
Weird.
more of like, can you get back to that peak that we saw you at last fall? And
Yeah.
if you can, and like clearly he wasn't quite right and hasn't been quite right. I think the last few races you can see that, but he certainly looks like he's rounding back into form. I just don't know if he's going to be quite there, and I think that's why neither of us have him in our inner circle of favorites. But this was again another great opportunity for him to get that first title, and I don't think it's going to happen.
Here's a bold question. Are you going to put him in your All-American spots? Because I'm going to be honest, he has not been good.
Yeah.
It's now, granted, this is his ideal race. It's at altitude.
I
I
think
think there's a lot favoring him.
it depends on how he approaches it. Like, right? If he approaches it like he's prime Nico Young, I'm going to go try to win. Then no, I'm not. I'm not going to put him in the top 8. But if he is a little bit more conservative, then yeah, I think he should be. And that's what I got to figure that out, like whether or not he's going to be aggressive or not.
I think that's a really good point. I completely agree with that. I think that's a great point. All right, let's wrap up with DMRs.
All right. We mentioned this in our reaction podcast a little bit, so I don't think there's too much to go into. Favorite on the women's side, Washington.
It's like 4 teams. It's like I think well, it's like a Washington, Oregon, Arkansas.
I
Depends on NC
yeah.
State. Like maybe like how easy is that 5K? How tactical does that get? Because if Tui's jogging and then she's like, "Oh, I can run another race,"
Yeah.
I would be a little scared.
Yeah. I
Because
I
here's the
just
thing:
wonder
she's the only
how
one.
much the rest of the lineup's going to be able to help her out and put her into
Yeah, I
position.
mean Samantha Bush is going to be fresh on that relay.
Yeah.
Like here's the thing: it's she's the only one since Edward Cheserek who I was like she can realistically do that triple.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. Like 423 split at ACCs is so insane.
But she's not going to be able to do that after a
No,
5K, no matter how
uh,
fast slow the 5K
you're right.
is.
Maybe not, but we've said a couple
Like she
times.
could run 428, but do
At
you think
altitude.
420? I just don't know if that's going to be enough. I think Washington's just and like Oregon, I think they're just going to have a big enough lead.
Yeah, I think it's Washington, Oregon. I'll eventually come down to that point. Problem is like Washington, they're if they've run their full lineup, it's Prey, Thomas, and Gibson who are all doubling back. So O'Sullivan's fresh,
Yeah.
but like I don't know.
Do you think they'll run O'Sullivan anchor because she's
I
fresh?
don't know. I think they're definitely going to run O'Sullivan because she's fresh, but I'm not
Okay.
convinced that they're going to run their top lineup.
Hmm. Interesting.
They've got like some interesting alternates thrown in there.
Yeah.
Where like Forster's and Markovic have been really good, and they could both run like the mile or 1200 distance. And so we'll see because like they're tripling a lot of or doubling a lot of women, three of
Yeah.
the four legs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and Oregon's in the same boat. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, but the
they've
difference is
proven
that
that
yeah they can
they've done it before.
yeah, and I think I like Maddie Elmore if they're willing to put her on the 800 leg. I could see this being
Yeah.
competitive. So
Yeah. Dark horse.
Duke, Dalia Frias is not in this lineup. It's because she's on the transfer portal, which we reported. Okay, here's the thing. I think Carly Forker's maybe just as good. Carly Forker, and here's the thing. I'm biased. I know Carly, right? She was teammates with my brother. Very good family. But the fact of the matter is that Carly Forker's run 439 in the mile, and that's significantly faster than anything Frias has run this season. Maybe not all
Mm-hmm.
time, but this season. And she's like Forker's like an 800-mile hybrid. She's actually the perfect leg for the 12. So I think I like Duke, especially when you put Amina Matug on there. Like
Mm-hmm.
you could convince me that they'll win a title.
Give me Georgetown. I like
Mm-hmm.
just the amount of middle distance pieces that they can kind of mix and match as they need to. Grace Jensen has been very solid this year. They don't have anybody like a Matug that you feel can split a 431, which definitely limits their ceiling. But I just think they're well rounded and are going to beat a lot of teams that you wouldn't expect just because they're fresh and I think have a good like 1 through 4 lineup.
Yeah, I agree. Um, there's one team in the prove it category. Who is it?
Washington.
No,
Really?
because they're all doubling back. And
Yeah, but they're the record holders.
yeah, but
Like
I don't
they
even yes, but I don't even know if they're going to run that full lineup.
okay, fair enough.
Like, do you think they will?
Maybe I maybe 3 of the 4, maybe not 4 of 4.
And maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. And maybe it is Washington in that case, right? I'm just not convinced that's going to be it.
Yeah,
I also don't think like they're going to be doubling back. It's just different context in my
yeah.
opinion. UCLA.
Are you gonna say? Ah, okay.
It's like no one expected them to be here. Like I
Yeah,
know they got Barnett, but like your relay has to be at this level more than just one anchor leg.
yeah,
Um, if they, I think at the fact that they're here is incredible. Don't get me wrong,
yeah,
but it's like oh, we didn't think you'd get here. Let's see just how good you really can be. And I'll be excited. I'll be interested to see what happens.
Yeah, I honestly feel like they don't have that much to prove just because they're here and
And
they're
that's
ahead of
true.
schedule.
It depends on how you look at it. They might be well ahead of schedule and might be like, honestly, I can't believe they're even here to begin with. That's good enough. So yeah, I think that's totally fair, depending on how you look at it. So
On the men's side, how many teams do you have in your kind of favorite status? Is it more than two?
I think
Two?
it's three.
Okay. Oklahoma State, Washington, North Carolina,
No.
Villanova.
Yes.
Why not North Carolina?
Hunt is not as like good as or as accomplished or as fast as like Charlie O'Donnell.
That's fair. He's just coming off an ACC title, though.
He is, but he won in like 358, which was his
Yes.
PR,
Yeah.
right? And I will say this: he's actually been on this. No, he wasn't actually on the stage before. I lied. He hasn't been. Um, Dolan is noticeably better than Reinheimer,
Mm-hmm.
and Murphy and Strand really aren't that different. Maybe Murphy has him a little bit, but not by a lot. I think the Villanova's lineup is literally built for the DMR.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know if Oklahoma State has a DMR lineup that's built as perfectly for the DMR. And plus, I think like Strand as your anchor, I like Strand a lot. Like I've been fighting for him in our rankings. He's just a little young,
Mm-hmm.
so we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with there. I think North Carolina and Villanova are fairly similar. I after hearing what you're saying, I think it's fair to give Villanova the slight edge, but I think those four are pretty separated from the rest of the field. Still give Oklahoma State and Washington the edge, just because those guys are going to be fresh. They're going to be, or mostly fresh, are going to be good to go. They've both run 916, which is significantly faster than anybody else.
I also just want to clarify. I maybe want to take back what I said. Hunt actually ran 356 earlier this year, so I apologize. That's incorrect information I gave you guys. Hunt did run 356. So yeah, maybe it is a closer argument than I thought. I still take Villanova. I apologize, Jesse Hunt, but yeah,
To win,
it's Oklahoma State. It's not
yeah,
close.
I agree. Dark horse.
Man, I don't know.
I got a good one.
Yeah, tell me.
Give me Tennessee. I
Yeah,
think
I was
I
kind of
think
looking at them.
Anderson as the anchor is the scary part, but Abdallah we know can anchor a DMR. We know it, and he's gonna come in fresh.
Do you mean Anderson as the leadoff leg?
Yes,
Okay.
I feel pretty good about that. Um, Joe Hoots, former teammate,
Mm-hmm.
he's run well in that 800 leg in the DMR all year
He's been
long.
great this year.
They have a very good 400 leg. They're going to be, I don't think they're going to crack that top four, but there's no reason why they aren't somewhere between fifth to seventh, I think.
Okay. Okay. I'm stuck between two. I'm stuck between two. Um,
Let's talk it out.
Stuck between Ole Miss and Indiana. And
Indiana's burned you, and you don't want to do that again.
that's exactly right. They have burned me one too many times, and I am so sick of it. And I just want to be like, maybe they deserve the respect. It's just the on paper stuff just isn't there. And yet it just doesn't matter sometimes. And that's the most frustrating part. Like Jake Gebhardt split 354 out of nowhere. It's like he should never have been running that fast. Like it's insane. And I really like Camden Marshall, but there's also questions about like how much more the rest of the lineup can do. It's tough. And then Ole Miss though, like the only reason like why I didn't say Ole Miss is just because about like how much I've been burned by Indiana. Ole Miss is like probably the next most like prepared lineup behind Villanova in terms of like what they can do. They can put in Shane Bracken and ensure that they'll have a completely fresh lineup.
Mm-hmm.
If that happens, they're almost definitely going to be like a top 5 relay.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
they're the anti-Indiana. They are perfect on
yeah,
paper, but haven't quite run that as fast of a time maybe as you would expect.
yeah, this season at least.
Yeah,
Historically, they're
right,
great.
exactly.
So and then
Most
yeah,
approve?
well, yeah, most approved is that.
I think it has to be Washington. Like you have
Yeah,
that deep
I
of a
think you're right.
group in the mile, you should be winning the DMR. The fact that you aren't the NCAA record holder and that you got beat this year, and I'm not saying that to like shade Oklahoma State at all. I love Oklahoma State. Like what they did to beat Washington was amazing, and all those guys are really really good. Washington should be destroying people in the DMR with the amount of middle distance stuff that they have.
Yeah. You're right. It's Washington. It's just it's like well they've got Lum Fresh. They're just having so many guys double back, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like at altitude, how much can you really recover from? Like Cass Elliott, who's a much bigger piece than I think people give him credit for,
Mm-hmm.
is running the 800 prelims. Like the 800
Yeah.
prelim DMR double is not easy.
No. Because
Um,
you have to. He's going all out in that 800 prelim.
what's his heat? What heat is he in?
Uh, he is in the first heat.
Which has
With
Busy Mana,
yeah,
Gensel, Sumner, Gomez, and
has a potential. Well, actually, no, Anderson's in there. Probably will be
he's
pretty
got some.
fast.
That's going to be a really tough heat.
Yeah,
That's a brutal heat. Yeah, you're right. It's Washington. They just have so many guys. It's insane.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, Oklahoma State has been way better than I think any of us expected, and Washington's been way better than we expected. Just overall, you have to turn that into a DMR title.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to.
I don't think so either, but
yeah, Oklahoma State's just ridiculously good. So yeah, no, I think that's it though.
yeah,
Nice job.
yeah.
Well done. Do you have anything else you want to wrap up?
No, I think we're good. Check the site, check for predictions, check for our previews. We've had a lot of really good previews go up already that have been, I've learned something from almost all of them. And a lot of really concise but incisive analysis. So appreciate the team doing that.
Yeah, we got D1, D2, D3 previews, every distance event, every name. They all get 2 to 3 lines of analysis. So if you really want to learn about some of these people, some of these men and women who are in these fields, our writers kind of sit down and they actually watch these things and they understand what certain tactics go into it, someone's history. It's some of my favorite pieces of content. I think everyone likes them. We've got a lot of our D1 stuff out now. Probably by the time you're listening to this, most of the D1 stuff will be out. D2 and D3 stuff is just beginning to come out now. Predictions, if this comes out Wednesday, which it will, we'll probably release predictions at some point Wednesday. But yeah, that's all I got. So thank you for everyone go supporting Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and now YouTube. Go subscribe there. Go check it out. Ben, that's all I got.
All right. Well, until next week when we recap NCAA championships, I'll talk to you.
I'll talk to you.
3.